Hi, and welcome to the Hidden Pulse with Cissy. That's me, where we go beyond the titles, beyond the strategies, beyond the success stories to uncover the people, the passion, and the purpose of driving healthcare, business, and leadership forward. The Hidden Pulse brings together voices from every corner of healthcare, from business, from the frontline staff to the clinicians, to physicians, to entrepreneurs, to executive authors, and C-suite leaders. Every voice matters on this show because every story helps us better understand the people behind the work and the decisions that are made to shape our industry and our lives. I'm your host, Cissy Mangrum, co-founder and chief revenue officer of RevTech Partners and MaximizeRCM Consulting, where we operationalize your KPIs and transform your revenue cycle challenges into opportunities through technology, knowledge, education, and proven processes. Today, I'm honored to welcome Dina Lynch Eisenberg. For more than 30 years, Dina has helped people navigate difficult conversations, high-stake decisions, and moments that can change the course of a career, an organization, or an entire life. As a lawyer, mediator, and organizational omnibus, our founder of Talkola and Your Quiet Rebuild has dedicated her career to help people make great decisions when the stakes are high. Through Talkola, Dana helps organizations strengthen communication, improve decision-making, and address conflict before it even becomes a costly situation in the organization. And through Your Quiet Rebuild, she empowers women over 50 who are navigating major life transitions by providing practical playbooks, decision tools, and guidance for rebuilding with confidence. What I admire most about Dana's work is that whether she's helping an executive team, navigating organizational conflict, or helping someone rebuild after a major life change, her mission remains the same: creating clarity, confidence, and better decision. She believes thoughtful preparation leads to stronger relationships, better outcomes, and fewer regrets. And I think that's something everyone can learn from. So in today's conversation, you're going to explore how difficult conversations matter, how leaders can make better decisions under pressure, and what organizations can do to create healthier cultures before conflicts escalate, and why some of those biggest life transformations can become opportunities for regrowth. So I am very excited about this. You're going to get to learn more about what she's doing and more about her and the why behind what she's doing. So grab your coffee, your tea, settle in, and join us for what I know will be an incredible conversation. Dina, welcome to the Hidden Pulse. Tell us a little bit about yourself and Talkola.
Well, Cissy, first of all, I'm just overjoyed to have this conversation with you. The last time we saw each other, we had such a fun conversation. I knew this was not going to be any different. So I know we're going to be laughing. We're going to be talking about a lot of things that folks will really be interested in hearing. So I'm ready to get going. So just to tell you a little bit about me, the number one question that people always ask is, what is an ombud? So for those who don't know, my name is Dina Lynch Eisenberg. I was a healthcare attorney and mediator, and I transitioned into being an organizational ombuds. What's that? Because that's what everybody asks. It is a conflict management expert who specializes in organizational health. So companies hire me to work with their employee community and to help that community navigate any conflicts or disputes that come up so that people can work together well and collaborate well and actually be much more productive and efficient. I love doing my work. I kind of think of it as my calling because it really fits both my intellectual side. From the lawyer side, there's a lot of analysis and deducting and strategy. And from the people side of things, I'm really kind of an empath. So it works for me to sit down and really hear what somebody's listening and be able to build that trust and relate to them and then help them see the opportunities. Because I'm really all about empowering people to see that they have much more control over their lives than they think. Because right now people think stuff happens to me, and that's essentially true. But they don't take the next step and think, and what do I want to do about it? They think, well, what could happen? Which is much more generic. So I want people to know that when you get into difficult conversations with somebody, that you don't necessarily have to accept what's happening. You have some agency. You can use your emotional intelligence. You can use your conflict management skills. You can use your communication and leadership skills to move the conversation to someplace else where you want to go. What I discovered over the 30 years of being an ombuds, and I always laugh when I say that because in my head I'm 22, but it's been 30 years of working with leaders, Fortune ranked companies like Bank of America and Coca-Cola. I was the ombuds for Twitter and developed their ombuds program. And working with leaders, I discovered that oftentimes if there's a toxic environment or it's a tension environment, it's usually because, and I hate to say it, but the leader is avoiding having the hard conversation. And typically when you're dealing with dentists, who I relate to so much, the reason they're avoiding that conversation is so complex and unconscious that I want to make that visible for people. So lawyers and clinicians have very similar educational path. We go to school, we work super hard at all the studying, and the goal is to make you an excellent technician. Like you know your work. You know how to do your work. You've been tested umpteen million times. Your ethics are in place. You know how to do the thing. What you don't know how to do is everything else. You don't know how to run a business, even though both lawyers and clinicians are expected to run a business after they finish school. Nobody teaches you how to do that. You're supposed to figure that out on your own. Same thing with leading a team. There is no course in law school or dental school that teaches you how to lead your team, even though you're supposed to have one, right? And so if you're the kind of person who maybe you're a little bit introverted, maybe you're a little bit shy, you like to be friends with everybody, it is very hard to hold people accountable when you don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. And I understand that because as a lawyer, at one point in my career, I stopped telling people I was a lawyer because I just couldn't bear one more like bad lawyer, kill them all kind of thing. It was really damaging my mental health. So I thought, okay, we're just not going to mention that anymore. Same thing, I think, with clinicians, right? Because what do people say before they go to the dentist? Oh, I really don't want to go to the dentist. I'd rather walk into traffic and instead of seeing the dentist or get a root canal. There's really not a positive feeling about going to the dentist. And that impacts people. The only people who want to see you that day are your staff, right? They're
Yeah.
excited to see you. So you don't want to do anything that's going to mess that up. You're not trying to
Yeah.
correct people because what if they get mad? What if I say something wrong? What if I make it worse? What if they leave and leave me stranded? I don't have somebody to help me. It took me years to get to a place where I understood what conflict actually is. And for those who don't know, conflict is just difference, right? It's just a difference of seeing things or opinion. It's not good or bad. Conflict in itself is a neutral thing. What makes it bad is what we do when we are in conflict, right? So if you can learn some mindset stuff and learn some skills and some neuro leadership skills, like how to say things, when to say things, how to observe other people so you understand what to say and when, then you become powerful. Like I consider myself as someone who has superpowers because I never worry about what's going to happen around me because I know I have the ability to ascertain what's going on, what the other person needs, determine what I need, and figure out a way for us both to get what we need. And that means I never have to worry about being in a tough spot because I can always figure it out. I never have to really worry about someone yelling at me because I know how to manage that kind of conversation with somebody. And I can be generous because I'm able to hold the line on the things that I need and give other people what they need within certain context.
Quite interesting what you're doing because there's always been, right? It doesn't matter how many hundreds of years, there's always been this, inability or ability to work with each other because everybody has, like, everybody has different beliefs, everybody has different backgrounds, everybody comes from different work ethics, everybody comes from different education.
Mm-hmm.
There are
Mm-hmm.
people who are just naturally smart, or, things come to them very quickly. And then there are people that they have to study, study, study to get it done. Right. So all of that in combined to how we communicate with each other it's amazing we don't have just fallouts everywhere, right? So I could tell you that if I could go back in time and I knew you when I was younger, personality types come into this as well.
Oh,
After so many years of this show going, it's going to be where, yeah, we know what Sissy's personality type is. She talks about it all the time. But like, I have a very strong personality. I'm a type A. I
mm-hmm.
I like to do things. I like to get things done. I see a goal, I go after it, right? Well, it was probably 20 years ago when I was blessed that I had a doctor say, "Hey, you've got blinders on. You are
Mm-hmm.
just going, but you're not looking at the people around you that you need to help you do the things you need to do. So you're just bulldozer. You're like a bull in a china shop.
Mm-hmm.
You go and you get it done. The board wanted all this stuff done, and now they're mad at me because I did it. It wasn't because
Exactly
it
it.
got done. Yeah, they were excited that it got done, but it was the way that I did it. Even though people look at me, Dina, and they're like, "No way, you can't. We're going to get it done." And it didn't matter, if Susie
Ah,
or
I
Johnny
love
or what,
that.
we were going to do it, right? And if I had had something like what you're doing right now, if that had been in place where I could have learned how to have better communications, I look now, what would my career have been? Because I
Mm.
had such great success on getting things done,
You would
but
have more, even more success.
from a people skill, I was struggling. And even
Yeah.
today, I struggle with that. I mean, it's just part of my personality that I have to constantly rein in. And just to be clear, anybody listening to the show, it's not just for executives. She
No,
can do
absolutely
it for
not.
anybody. Let's just
Yeah.
say that you are a front office receptionist and you
Perfect.
want to be a leader, but you see that you need better communication skills. She can help you with these things. I mean, this is the thing. This is about people interaction. This is not
That's
about
right.
position interaction,
No,
right?
no, I try to tell people that a couple things. Tacola is really designed for anybody who has to keep other people accountable. So that might be the practice owner, might be the office manager, might be the leads, might be the lead hygienist, might be the regional manager. So anybody who has to have conversations that are challenging. So it might even be with your coworker. It's interesting that you mentioned that you would have liked to have had this when you were earlier in your career, because for a while I was teaching middle school and high school students how to mediate and how to really think about being in conflict and how to move through it in a way that's productive and not so productive. Interestingly enough, nobody knows their conflict styles, which is what you were talking about. And as part of Tacola, the first thing that we do on the platform is assess your style. Because once you understand what your conflict style are and the other 5 styles, then you can become attuned, and actually the platform will give you personalized coaching based on what your conflict style is. So
That
if I was going to guess, I would say that maybe you have a competing style. And all that really means is that your project's over people and that you're driven to complete the goal.
Yeah. I would say I'm very highly competitive. Very highly competitive. There are things that have to get done, and we have deadlines we have to get to, right? In the field that I work in, right? We don't have the luxury of waiting 6 months, well, 18 months, 2 years to get a project done. It's money. It is really interesting. Over the years, of course, I have learned how to
Yes.
rein it in, let people, do their things. But even I would say I had a conversation a few weeks ago and it just went crazy, went off the rails.
It
And
went
I knew that
left.
I'd lost all,
Yeah.
lost all action of the conversation. Right. And, I said to myself, this is ridiculous. It was like, it doesn't have to be this way. The one thing that I think is people, and this is for me too, and you probably hear this from people, nobody wants to lose in the conversation. So if there's a situation where it's a high octane conversation, nobody should be walking out feeling like they've lost everything. It should be a
Well, I'm
fair
not going to
fair
push
thing.
back on that because, it would be unrealistic as an adult to think that you're never going to lose, right? So what I want people to understand is that, and I maybe phrase it a little bit differently than
I
you
think I
do.
may have phrased mine a little bit differently, and that's something I think I'm thinking you don't lose. You might.
In the conversation.
That's
Yeah, I
right.
think
That's
that's
right.
what you mean.
That's
Yeah.
what I mean. Yeah, yeah. So, boy, I said that right. See, those are things I was like, look at
Well,
that.
there you go. And that's
Yeah,
what
there
I
you go.
do, helping you reframe, come to a little more clarity about what you mean. And that's really what Ombuds does because I've been able to coach so many leaders across so many different industries. And everyone thinks, oh, my industry is different. It's not the same for us. I can honestly say it's pretty much the same for everybody. And
Yep.
when you're learning how to use these skills, what you have to understand is you're going to get it wrong. So be prepared for that. And the way that you can prepare for that is having a growth mindset. We talk about having a growth mindset and a fixed mindset. Fixed mindset is either I can do it or I can't, right? Those folks are the kind of folks who worry about not winning, so they don't try things they can't win at, right? You really want to have a growth mindset that says, innately, I have all the tools I need to figure things out. I may not know how to do it right now, but if I apply myself very shortly, my skills will increase. I will get better and I will get to master it. So you kind of
Yeah.
have to go into this discussion having that mindset. I'm going to make mistakes. And when you do make mistakes, here's what I tell clients.
Yep.
So I want everyone to hear this. If you're in a conversation and you say something that you're like, oh my God, how did that fall out of my mouth? The thing to do is to first pause. Because the pause lets you calm you down so that you don't actually say something that you're not meaning. Well, it signals to the other person that you're thinking. So you get kind of a pause and a benefit because they think, oh, they're thinking. Now you can say, no, I think I misspoke. I was trying to do X, Y, Z, or say X, Y, Z, and I said something else. Can we reset and go again? People love that because one, you're showing you're vulnerable. Two, you're acknowledging, hey, I made a mistake. I did not say what I intended to say. And three, you're putting the control back in their hands so they can be like, so she's not trying to bulldoze me. She realizes that wasn't the right thing. Yes, of course, I can be generous because we all think of ourselves as being generous souls and we can restart. Right. So you
Yep.
never really have to worry about saying the wrong thing. You can just pause and say, I said the wrong thing. I meant to. Or, those situations where you don't know what to say. Like someone
Yep.
tells you something, it's like, what do I say to that? Then you
Yeah.
can actually just say, wow, you shared something with me that's interesting, amazing, difficult, challenging. And I honestly don't know what to say. What would be most helpful right now? Right?
Yeah.
So you're acknowledging, I heard you. I am smart enough to know I will put my foot in my mouth. And so I'm not going to say anything until you help me understand context and what you need now. Those
Yeah.
are the
I
kinds
think
of things we teach.
those are the things that are so valuable. I think I've brought my husband up in this before, but I've told people many a times if they've ever talked to me long enough, I say this comment. I said, if my husband had the same type A driver like drive with his calm, cool, collective, personality and his ability to talk. So when he talks with people and he interacts and, interacts with people, they just automatically just love him. I mean, there is just like this almost awe about because he's a great communicator. He's able to talk things through, very calm, cool,
Yeah.
collective, but he has a huge drive. I mean, he has two businesses he owns. If he were to get into political things, this man would be the president of the United States and of the world because everybody would just be like, "Yeah, I get what you're saying. I can,
Yeah.
because he's able to communicate in such a way that it doesn't get you on a negative side or it doesn't, say, "Oh,
Nope,
you
he
can't."
doesn't trigger you
Yeah, he's not
because
that. He's just that calm. And then I look at me and I go, "What?" But at the end of the day, we all have our purposes, right? We
Mm.
can't all be an Andy, and we can't all be a Jack Welch. We have to all understand that we come to the table with our own uniqueness and our own
Hmm.
abilities, and then sometimes we just need a little help to communicate with people, you know?
Yeah, I love that you said that because I'm not trying to make people into something they're not. Trying to help them find within them the the skills they need to communicate that are already there, that they're just
Yep.
not using at work, or they're just not using because it's not their primary style, and their primary style works for them. And they're like, why would I change that? It's like, well, you would change that because you want to communicate based on the style of the person you're talking to, right? That's, I think, why Andy does so well. It's because he's able to observe that person's style and then he matches his style to theirs. Sounds
Yep.
like when you talk about him that he really attends, which is a listening skill. We don't learn how to listen in school. And most of the time we're not listening. It's about listening to like 5 to 10 seconds, and then our brain kicks into sorting. So we sort for what do I need to respond to this? So you're talking for 2 or 3 minutes. The person stopped listening after 10 seconds. They're formulating a response. Even though they haven't heard everything, just have heard enough clues to get in the right ballpark, but they haven't really heard you. I bet you Andy doesn't do that. He attends. He listens to actually what you said, and then he responds to that. That's something everybody can learn to do.
Anybody can learn. And I do say that that's difficult for a lot of people. I mean, it's difficult for people, and I'll take myself as an example. My brain works at 1,000 miles an hour.
So does
So
mine.
I'm just like, it's like, okay, so I'm listening to what she's saying and I'm sorting these things. Is that what I'm doing? Is that, and I've had people, which is really interesting. I've had people actually tell me, like, I've actually had people say, just stop and listen to me, Sissy. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, let me tell you exactly what you just said. And I'll say it word for word. And you're saying, what do you mean by me not listening? Because I
Yeah.
literally repeated back word for word what you said. And they're like, you're not listening to the content. And I'm like, what?
You love it.
Like,
Now you know you're not
yeah,
attending.
yeah,
Because it's not just being able to repeat the words back.
you're not retaining what the intention of the conversation is. You're just
Yeah.
listening to the words and they're bringing it over. I can only say it because it's my own experience, Dina. I can tell you that there are people that, like, I don't like Sissy. I don't want to be around her. I want to, but from a leadership perspective, like what I've done, I pride myself in being a good leader. Like when I go places, I don't usually lose a lot of team members. Like I don't
Okay.
usually, people don't massively exit when I come in, if that makes sense. Like
Yep.
oh, I don't like this leadership style. I don't like this stuff. But I will tell you, I rub people the wrong way for sure. For sure, I rub
Yeah.
people the wrong way. And it's not to be mean. Sometimes it's, like you said, the communication style and there's different stuff. And we're constantly learning. Just because I
That's
do it
right.
today doesn't mean I won't do it tomorrow, right?
Well,
Like I'm
that's what I'm
always
trying to help
learning
people
and that's what you do. I
understand.
mean, I think people should understand when they're listening to this show, what Dina's doing is that she's saying, hey, it doesn't have to be that way. And
Yeah.
so, hey, I've got this tool, this amazing AI tool that you can practice these conversations. Like, I need to go in and tell someone that, let's just say they're an emotional person. We know that Sissy's an emotional person. How do we communicate with Sissy? And we need to communicate these things to her. So, for example, like for me, I take so much value in work and I want things to be right. And so when
Yeah.
somebody comes and tells me I'm not doing something right, you got to come to me and tell me exactly what I'm doing, but don't come into me and say I'm a horrible person in the process. Right.
Yeah.
And people do that. People will,
Yes.
like,
They get
instead of
confused.
saying,
They get
you
frustrated.
didn't do this presentation is not right, they go, this is horrible, do you not
What
know
were you
how to do blah blah
thinking?
blah blah, do you not know this? It's one of those things where it's not about the work anymore, it's about Sissy. Do you know
Yeah.
what I
It
mean?
becomes personalized.
Or it's about
Yeah.
Susie, or it's about Joe. And so you have to, like, say, okay, what you're doing, which is, I think, pretty amazing, is that it can stop being
That. And the
that.
reason it can stop being that is because when people take that approach, which is like the blaming approach right away, and playing the blame game is so popular in business. Everybody wants to point the finger at somebody else, but it's so unproductive. It's much more effective, instead of blaming, is to be curious. And here's why that's particularly true in a dental context, right? So you're the practice owner. You are doing your thing, running the practice. You're maybe chair side and doing everything else. You got your hygienists and assistants. You got your front desk person. Maybe you have an office manager. Everybody's doing something else that contributes to the practice functioning. But you're not at every place. You don't see every conversation. You don't see every interaction, right? So you actually do not know. You are told something, you presume that's true, which is not true. It is that person's lens that complained to you. It's not gospel. It's not the Bible. It's their opinion. You cannot just take that and run with it. So what you have to be, instead of sure that somebody made a mistake, is curious about what happened overall. So if you made a mistake, Cissy, I would be saying, Cissy, I noticed XYZ happened and I'm curious. Can you tell me more about that? Because here's what happened afterwards. And then I tell you the impact of whatever it is that you did.
Yep.
And I'm just trying to understand how we can work together so that impact doesn't happen again. Well, help me understand what happened and what you did, and then maybe we can figure out how to do it differently next.
Yeah, yeah. And I think, I had a really good leader many years ago who did that with me and helped me understand. So you got a strong personality. That's okay. We love that. We love that you have a strong personality. That's the whole reason why we hired you.
Yep.
However, she
So
used some
no
words that
buts.
was like, we
Yeah.
love that about you, but not
And
everybody does. So we
yeah,
have to merge that around. And I was like, wow. So, you start thinking about these things. And that's exactly kind of what you talk about in all
yeah,
of in all the things that you're doing. It's all about your approach and about how you go about it.
yeah.
I always tell people, I wish I was perfect and was able to, make everyone happy and everything. And it was so funny. One of my really good friends that I've worked with for many years, we've worked in the industry back and forth, have worked together, have not worked together, have done things together. And one time she told me, she said, not everybody's gonna like you, and if you're going around the world trying to get everybody to like you, it's never gonna happen.
It's never
And
gonna
I was
happen.
like, but everybody likes Jack Welch. They're like, no, they don't.
No, they
No, they
don't.
don't.
Can I
They
just tell you a story
100%
about
do not
that?
like. The only people that like him are probably people who have never sat down in a boardroom and had real, true conversations. He said,
Yeah, you
but it's the way that he approaches things and the way that he does things that people respect him. Not necessarily. You can respect somebody, but not necessarily like them all the time, right?
yeah,
What you do in your industry. I want to make sure it's very clear on this podcast so everybody understands. She does this with dentistry, but she also does it with medical practices,
yeah,
hospitals, with
yes,
behavioral health,
yeah,
with companies. Like she just said,
yeah.
she did it with Twitter and Coca-Cola and all this stuff. I mean, what you're doing is not necessarily targeted only to dentistry. It's just that like today you're working with dentists. Today
Yeah,
your focus is with dentists. And because
exactly. Yes.
there's so much turmoil going on in the dentistry with practices,
Yeah, the
merging
shortage.
together,
Yep,
with
and the rollout.
shortage of individuals,
Yeah,
with people not having long, they don't, if they don't like something, they just leave. It's just in this time frame of what's happening in dentistry, if that makes sense. And I
it
think it's really
does.
cool because there are people, Dina, that are listening to the show that are, CEOs of hospital systems that are probably going to go, I
Yeah,
should
we
probably
want to
call
talk.
her.
I think people don't recognize is often people will think this work is a nice to have, but it's really essential. Solving or managing unresolved conflict in the workplace is a financial lever, right? It helps you reduce your costs. Right now, the overhead costs in dentistry are like crazy because of the labor shortage. Salaries have gone through the roof. Right now, retention assurance, which is the ability to keep your team for longer, is a competitive advantage. And so this isn't a nice to have. It's a, if I'm planning on growing my independent practice into a small group, or I have a DSO and, we're regularly, like Brad Hughes said the other day, he's adding 4 to 5 acquisitions, new partners every year. That means that he has to have a system whereby he can manage conflict better, and that he knows that everybody on his teams is what I call conflict ready. And what does that mean exactly? It means that you have the right mindset. You're comfortable entering a hard conversation. You have emotional intelligence. You know how to self-reflect, and you have social awareness, so you can read the room and figure out what's the right thing to do. And then you have the actual language skill set, so you know how to frame questions and start conversations and move them forward to a conclusion that's going to be positive. When you have folks that are conflict ready, then you really don't have a lot of conflict, because people understand how to quickly realize, "Oh, we have a difference of opinion. Let's get together and talk to it. What's our ultimate goal? Let's figure out how to meet the goal, because that's what we're all here for, and get going." That's what I really want people to understand, is when you're conflict ready, it increases your EBITDA, because you're saving so much money. You're not going out and getting temporary staff. You don't have that revolving door where every couple of weeks you have a new assistant. It's K every time you replace a hygienist, and about
Yep.
200K every time you replace an associate. Who has that kind of money? Nobody.
Well, that's the hidden cost. Nobody even thinks about that cost.
Yeah.
They go, "Oh, that's just the cost of operating business." It's like, no, it's not.
Oh,
It's not. If you have, it's one thing for people to move along because they're growing. They're
yep,
getting maybe they're a hygienist and they just got a lead hygienist role, but there wasn't that in your office.
yep,
That's okay, because I'm always like, go because you're growing. Hopefully what we did was build enough skills for you in my clinic or in my office or my group that caused you to grow,
yeah.
because we weren't ready for that in our group. It's okay, but don't go because you're having conflict. I think too, hiring is it's a
Hard.
skill and it's
Yeah.
hard. I will say, this was funny. I had an interview with a hospital system way back in the day, and it was what I called a conflict interview. If you really wanted
Ooh,
to, it was, I called it a stress interview.
oof.
Um, they were just, I mean, it was almost like I was a bad employee or whatever. They were coming at me with all kinds of questions. What would I do in his saying? And really kind of get me into a defensive mode. Kind
Yes,
of like a
yes.
defensive mode. And how would I handle that? And it was, I remember it to this day, because it was almost like something clicked in my head and I got real calm.
Yep.
And I just started saying, okay, so this is what we would do and this is how we would do it. And then it was like, well, what if that didn't work, Sissy? What if they were? And I was like, well, it's okay if it didn't work. We're not surgeons. We're not removing organs or body parts out of a person. So everything is fixable. You just have to identify it and
Yep.
blah blah blah. And it was, when I left that interview, my heart was racing, not because I
Ooh.
was nervous, but after the fact, I was sitting back going, what the heck was, you know, these people? I don't even want to work for these people if they're
No.
going to act like that. And I got a call back like 2 days later. It said, you did phenomenal in our stress interview. We work, it was a big hospital system, and I was going to be over the RCM for about 1,500 doctors and all of their staff. Okay. So
Yep.
overseeing the whole thing. And he goes, these are the things that you're going to encounter with our doctors. These are the things that you're going to encounter with our leaders in the field. And we wanted to know if you'd be able to handle that. We want to
Hmm.
be able to see if you can come with a calm demeanor, or if you're just going to immediately be defensive and just be like, I know my stuff. Why are you questioning me? And I was just like,
Yeah. That's
that's
so
crazy.
interesting.
I mean,
Yeah.
that was crazy to me that that's what they wanted, but they knew that they needed people in their corporate office that could handle personalities, and very
Yeah.
strong personalities. and I was going to be in the heart and vascular groups and the neo group, these very strong, you
Yeah.
want those guys to have ego.
Yeah.
Okay. Like in the dental
So,
world, your OMS doctors and some of them that do trauma, you want those guys to have ego because you want them to think that they are the best of the best and there is nobody better than them so that they can concentrate on the things that they do. Right. I mean, I was talking to a doctor who is a heart surgeon, and he literally would touch people's hearts and restart, open their chest, take their hearts,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? You
Yeah.
got to have a healthy dose of ego to do that. The problem is those doctors don't come out of surgery with that healthy
They don't
dose of
turn that
ego
off. They don't
with them
turn that
everywhere
off.
they go,
Yeah, that's
and
exactly
so
it.
they treat everything like that, and so you're like, how do you interact with that doctor who is,
Yeah, that is a
got that
perfect
type of,
example.
thing.
Perfect.
They knew that I had the skills. They knew that I had the knowledge. They knew that I had the, experience, and that I had the reputation of doing really well with rev cycle and money and, communication. But they didn't know if I could handle conflict in that way, right?
Yeah.
So super different, which is interesting.
Well, I was the ombuds for St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. So I got to interact with lots of doctors, lots of researchers, and as well as a couple other hospitals. So when you talk about the fact that doctors have to have a certain amount of ego, I can relate to that because it's the same thing with lawyers, right? You have to have a certain amount of what I would say confidence in your
That's
skills.
right.
And I would say confidence as opposed to ego because ego is one of those suitcase words. It has a lot of components to it, right? If
Oh
you
yeah, yeah,
have a
yeah.
high ego. Right? So I would say confidence. And if you're somebody who has high confidence, Harvard had a study that said that people who are highly confident are often wrong. And the reason they're wrong is because they give themselves too much credit. They're not
Yep.
curious about if they could possibly make a mistake. So for
I
that
can
kind
agree
of
with that.
person,
For my own
I'm
self, I can agree with
yeah,
that.
for that kind of person, really, I'm trying to help them see that they're going to be much more effective in their work if they can reduce their sense of certainty. They don't know everything, and that communicating with people with that kind of attitude makes people not want to help you. And in a healthcare setting, you want everybody to help you if possible, right? If you don't
Yep.
spot something, you want somebody else to say, well, did you consider this? So that you're
Yeah.
not missing something. And so really helping that clinician understand, like, yeah, I totally get your style. I get why it works here. Is it working here? No? Okay. So when you move from this environment to this environment, here's what you need to do. You need to shift your frame, understand who you're talking to, and talk to them from their style, not your style. Have a little bit more humility and take down the confidence level a little bit, which is hard for them to do. But once they start seeing that, oh my gosh, I get a better reaction. Things get
Yeah.
done quicker. People are happy to see me. Then it's like, okay, proof is in the pudding. I'm willing to make those changes and go forward. That's the great thing I think about Tacola is that it really is designed to help you understand yourself as a communicator better and help you see when you can make very small shifts that are going to make the conversation easier and more likely that you're going to get what you need. So, we're
Yeah.
talking about the different styles. If you have a competing style and you always want to get things done, there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're that kind of style and you're against somebody who is an avoider or an accommodator, it drives you crazy because you're like, stop telling me that everything I say is right and give me an answer. I need your input too. I don't want you to just avoid the conversation or tell me what I want to hear. And so
Yep.
you have to be able to understand, okay, that is their set point, right? They're going to try to avoid conflict. What do I need to do to make it much more comfortable for this person to actually tell me their ideas? And there are lots of things that you can learn to do to make that space. Something as simple as saying, I'd like to have this conversation with you about this topic on this day and time, and giving them that agenda ahead of time gives them a chance to think about it and say, hey, so send me an email if you anything you want to add to the agenda or you want to question. That way, somebody who avoids conflict doesn't have to bring something out to you in person that they are going to feel uncomfortable about. But it's
Yeah.
important for you to know they have another vehicle they can use to communicate with you. If you're not the kind of person who thinks about those things, you
Yeah.
miss the opportunity. right? And so Tacola is really about giving you the opportunity to be much more sensitive to where the other person is. I also love the fact that within the platform, you're going to get challenged a little bit. So it's not like, oh yeah, whatever you say is fine. It's like, did
Like,
you
oh yeah,
notice
that
you?
was really, really good. I like the fact that your platform will do that. I just learned something really good. I have always used the word ego, but it's just being confident. I think
Yeah,
that's I learned something today. So now I can
good.
change my mindset on how I look at things and do those different things, which is pretty cool. Okay, right. We've been talking, all about the stuff that you do because it's so intriguing, but we need to talk about you. I want
Okay,
people to know you.
sure.
Let's
What do you
do
want to
that.
know? I'm an open book. So I grew up on Long Island. I'm a Long Island girl, but I have no accent. I
Oh,
moved
how
to
did that
Boston.
happen? Did you move away from Long Island or
I
you?
did. I moved to Boston for 25 years where I went to law school. And it's so funny. When I got there, I still had a Long Island accent. There's somebody in my class who had a Revere accent, which sounds very much like a New York accent. So I immediately booked it over to them, like, hey, are you from New York? And they're like, no. I'm like, but you sound just like a New Yorker. And they're like, no, I'm from Revere. I'm like,
Oh,
okay.
that's
But I
now
should have
what drew
lost
you
my
to
accent.
Boston? What drew you to Boston for law school? Because I know so many people go there for law school.
Well, I could not say no to a complete merit scholarship. So I got a merit scholarship to law school and paid for the entire thing. Nobody mentioned, though, living in Boston was super expensive. So I had to actually
Yeah.
get a job. Very lucky to go to Suffolk University Law School, which I laughingly call the secondhand Harvard because every single one of my
No.
professors graduated from Harvard. So in essence, I sort of got a Harvard Law degree secondhand.
Hey, you know what? If you got some amazing professors, and you're doing it, it doesn't matter where you go to law school as long as the people are really good at what
Yeah.
they're doing when they're teaching, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's prestige. Don't get me wrong. I know that
Yeah.
having Harvard Law or having Vanderbilt Law or having Southern Law on your, resume looks good, but at the end of the day, if you got all teachers from Harvard, you got a Harvard
I did
education.
all right. I did all right. And then I ended up doing some work with Harvard. So, I was able to do some ombuds and project work with them. And I was part of the project and negotiations. I worked with Vantage Partners, which is a Harvard affiliated consulting firm for a lot of years. So I still got my Harvard cred.
That's your Harvard. You could
I still
totally
got my
put that
Harvard
on there. It's
cred.
all good. So you went into law, and
Mhm.
did you always want to do something in this aspect, like with communication and all of that stuff? Were you like wanting to do something different in law, and then it switched to more
Well, it
of
was
this
interesting.
type
So
of?
when I graduated law school, there was actually a glut of lawyers, if you can believe that. It was like 1988, way too many lawyers than the market could bear. So lots of people were not getting jobs. I was very lucky that I got a job with the Board of Medicine. And so I became a prosecuting attorney and I prosecuted doctors for sexual misconduct and chemical dependency. Just really I think
Oof.
issues that people don't understand how prevalent they are even now. And so
Yeah.
the folks I dealt with most were women who had, for one reason or another, been abused by their psychiatrist
Oh my
and wanted
gosh.
now to sue their doctor. And so
Yeah.
before you could sue them, you had to go through the process with the board. And so hearing these women tell their stories about how, they went for the mental health and before they knew it, there's one story that just blew my mind. So a woman who goes to a psychiatrist, he puts her in group therapy for a couple of years, and he realizes her vulnerabilities, and soon they're having an affair. They have an affair that he tells her is going to help her with her sexual problems. Um, and she believes him, but she's not getting any better, even though they practice often. And when she
No.
finally says to him, I'm not getting any better. I'm not going to see you anymore. I think this is disgraceful. Our affair is over. He says, you're right. I don't think I'm the right therapist for you, but I got someone for you. And he sends her to his best buddy who does exactly the same thing.
No. My goodness, this is
Exactly the
wild.
same thing. And so eventually she's like, I need to get them both. And that's how she
Yeah.
got into my docket. And then to hear one, the pain of having to explain to 25 different people that you were so dumb that you didn't realize that this person was abusing you.
Pursuing or manipulating you in such a way
Yeah,
that was doing that. Oh,
to
man.
have to go through your husband questioning you because now you've had an affair when you didn't really mean to. It happened because you were manipulated. Now your marriage is ruined. I was just so horrifying. And I thought, you know what? The main thing missing from this is that person needs some support. They need someone to be by their side, non-judgmental, help them understand what's going on because when you're at that level of stress, your brain really stops functioning clearly. You can't really process information well. You're likely
Wow.
to make poor decisions. So you need somebody to help you be by your side saying, I'm processing. I'm helping you understand this. I understand that you're going to get stuck, but I'm going to be here to help you move to the next step. That really appealed to me because the legal process is going to get you what the legal process gets you. It gets you a
Yeah.
lumber of years in court and maybe a small outcome, but it doesn't really solve the problem. So then I moved to mediation because that was closer to solving the problem. And I was working with banks and doing conflict resolution programs for them. And one of my clients was, if you're on the East Coast, you might know Bank of Boston, which was a regional bank. And we just fell in love with each other, kind of client consultant thing. They let me do pretty much whatever I wanted. And that I was really into building their culture into something. It was already very collaborative, but I also wanted to be very conflict ready, and they love that. When they got acquired by Bank of America, they were like, you got to come. I'm like,
He's like, this is a much bigger conflict ready. We need to be ready.
yes. They're like, we don't, and they were right. They're like, we don't think they get us because it was Fleet and buying Bank of Boston. Fleet had a very numbers first perspective. Bank of Boston had a very people first perspective. So the merger worked on paper, but in real life,
Yeah.
I can walk into a room and scan the room and quickly understand who was on what side based on who they were standing with and who they were talking to. And they needed that help to integrate the team so that each
Interesting.
one saw the value of the other one. So that's how I became an ombuds. And then I just totally fell in love with doing the work.
Do you work with when practices merge or join other like DSOs
Exactly.
or practices work
Yep.
and join MSOs or hospitals join together,
Yes,
hospital systems join together? Do you work with them to help them build those
I
differences and
do.
conflicts?
Because the numbers on post-merger integration are like horrible, like between 70 and 90% in the M&A space fail. Right now, we're in a really big roll up in the DSO space, and those fail so often. And it's super, super expensive to buy an asset. And you have, a deal thesis. This acquisition is going to increase our EBITDA or increase our expansion into a new state or whatever. And then people resist. The new purchased owner, doesn't understand their new role. There's all these problems around role clarification, who gets to decide what. And so what I help do is one, sort of do a intelligence briefing. What is that culture like? And then help them in the post-transition. What people are using Tacola for is that right now buyers are doing a little bit more people due diligence before they engage. And so if you're thinking about acquiring or partnering with a new practice, what you can do is ask to have some of the key stakeholders do a couple of rounds on Tacola. So then you understand, oh, this is what their conflict style is. This is how they work in conversations because we give a score. So you'll be able to see the scoring. And then you can figure out before you acquire them or
Not
partner with them.
after 3 months later.
Yeah, what
It's
it's going to be like.
now. It's now. This is how we communicate.
Right. So like, is this going to be a good fit? Maybe they're not right for us. Or it's a relatively good fit, but we're going to have to give them support. So that
Yeah.
that going in and you get what you want on the backside of going out.
Is it harder to get executives like CEO levels and HR people to accept that they should do that before? Because I feel like, and this could be completely wrong. Sometimes I think they don't want to rock the boat on the deal because the deal is so good their deal is so
Absolutely.
good for their EBITDA. They don't want to rock the boat, and therefore they're willing to
Take the risk.
take that big risk. And then and I wouldn't say most of the time, but a good majority of the time, there's a lot of dissatisfaction on both sides.
Yep, that is the problem because it's at the beginning, pre-close, everybody's just like, do the numbers work? Do the tech systems work? Yeah. Okay, we're good. But now we'll get around to the people. Do we like the leaders? Like literally, I was on a call the other day and I heard someone say, and it was just so crazy to me, like, yeah, I would love to sit down and have beers with him and, dinner. I think we're good. I'm like, if that it? That is the bar? You want to have dinner and beers with this person? I think you need to know a little bit more about their character and their personality. So
On how they interact with their staff, because
that's
sometimes
right.
one of the biggest, and again, I can be taught, so please, anybody listening, be like, just roll your eyes if you feel like I'm saying the wrong thing, but this is what I've seen. I can only say what I've observed. It's a blessing or a curse, however you want to do, however you want to look at it. I have been a part of acquisitioning
Yeah.
practices and hospitals. I've been on the other side of being acquired, and I have been acquired and stayed and been acquired and left, where,
Yeah.
there's so, I mean, so I feel like it's a blessing that I've experienced all the
Hmm.
different types of things, whether that's good or bad. People are like, oh, you've been in a lot
Oh,
of
I
jobs.
think
Yeah,
it's
well, I've
good
also
because,
learned
like
a lot of
you,
stuff. So it's more than just your interaction with the doctor. It's how does the doctor interact with their staff, and how does the
everybody.
staff interact with their doctor? Because I've been lucky that I've had these experiences that,
Hmm.
that they're difficult, but I'm lucky that I've had them. Being a part where the doctor is amazing, but no decision gets made because the office manager is really the one. They do an amazing job, and I hand
Yep.
everything over to them.
Yep.
And so when you go to make a change, and if that doctor didn't communicate to their staff that they're selling or that
Yes.
they're merging or they're whatever, that person gets upset. And
Yep.
then that person is the person that just after the
They
merger,
just
after
kill
everything,
it.
I'm not doing
Yeah,
anything
and they kill it.
with them. And they kill it, and then the doctor gets upset, and then there's just a lot of pain that
That
happens.
has been my experience too. Because the doctor is advised, don't say anything. And I understand why they get advised that, but you have to think of it from the other perspective. This is somebody that they've had a team in place for years. Typically, if that the office manager is like maybe their first or second employee, so they've a tight bond, very loyal. They passed off a lot of the responsibilities. So basically, that person is running their practice and should know. So it becomes a betrayal of trust. Like, I'm running your show and you didn't trust me with this
To be a part
decision.
of that, to be a
I
part of
have to
that
hear
growth.
about it afterwards. Hell no.
Well, and
I'm gonna
they don't want to leave. They don't have, they've
no,
loyal to
they
the
don't want to
doctor, they're
leave.
loyal to stuff. And then I know this sounds bad, but in some cases, not all cases, but in some cases, they want
Hmm.
that to fail, to show the doctor that the
Yeah.
doctor made the wrong decision.
Yep.
And maybe it wasn't the wrong decision. I'm not saying that happens in every situation. I'm just saying in all of my experience of working on hospital sides,
Yep.
MSOs and DSOs, it's the same thing. It's the same experience.
Yep. And
It
I
just
will say
looks
that
different. It has different faces, and it might have different things. But I feel, and this is where my idiocy comes in, because I don't know all the great things that you know, which is why we want people like you to be in these things. Is I feel like if there was more open communication and on both
mm,
sides, the MSO, the DSO, the hospital system, to say,
yep.
hey, we're going to have a conversation with your staff. We're going to let them know
Yep.
the reason why we're doing this. And it can be 100% positive. And we can, if you're not going to guarantee them a job, because there are, there
Yep.
are companies
Yep.
out there that they will, the day the contract signed, they let everybody
Clean
go.
house. They clean
They
house.
just
Yeah.
clean the house and put in their own people. Whether that's good or bad, it's indifferent. But what you should do is communicate to people and say, you'll have a package.
Yeah.
You'll have a package, or you'll have something. People don't like to live in fear. And then when they come into
No.
these situations, they feel hurt.
Yep.
They
Exactly.
feel, they feel
Betrayed.
betrayed.
They
They
feel
feel like
fearful.
now I'm part of something bigger that I've heard bad things about, or I've heard.
Number one question. What's going to
I think
happen to me?
The one thing that I see too is, and again, people can roll their eyes or whatever. It's the fact that they don't trust the people that are in that clinic to stay. And you know what? That is a bad role to start.
It,
Those Most of the time, there's going to be probably 20% they're going to leave. They're going to say, "Hey, I don't want to be a part of this. I want to go." But at the end of the day, most people are going to stay because they're going to feel like they were valued in the conversation, they were
yes,
valued in the transition,
yes,
regardless of whether or not they're going to be let go in the future because they're going to bring in new people. They still felt they were valued in that proposition.
yeah, that's exactly it. I think it's such a complicated thing when you're moving from a legacy company and you're acquiring somebody else, because on both sides, there's a level of grieving, right? Which we don't necessarily acknowledge. It's like, this is business. People will say, well, this is business. It's not personal. It's always personal if any person is involved. And so for the legacy team, they're like, I'm grieving the fact that now we have to, integrate this new team. It's going to change everything for me. For the new team that's coming on board, they're like, we don't know anything about these people. We don't know how they act, how they're going to treat us. I don't know if my skill set is going to be acceptable to them. I have a high level of fear going on. So I'm going to resist everything that I possibly can that doesn't make sense to me, because one, nobody stopped and asked me if I wanted to do this. And two, nobody's now trying to explain to me how it's going to work. A lot of my work in making that transition happen is, having those open forums where both sides individually, separately can say, like, here are my main concerns about this whole thing and what I'm worried about. And then having them find value in each other separately, so that when they do come together, it's like, oh, this is not what I expected, but I see why it happened, and I see an opportunity for me too to move forward. You need
Yeah.
somebody outside your practice to help you do that. You cannot do it on
Got
your
a
own.
mediator that says, "Hey, I'm looking at both sides. I'm
Yeah,
not one-sided. I'm looking
yeah,
at both sides to help the thing." It's such a personal thing. I say this all the time. Business is business. It is business, but people run the business. And
yeah.
so you are
It's
going to have
people.
situations. Business is going to have a situation where they're going to have to lay off people because, at the end of the day, if they don't have the money to pay you, it doesn't matter if you work there. They can't pay you. Okay.
Yeah,
So sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's change in leadership. Sometimes it's change in departments, the way
yeah,
they do it, into styles. It's business. It still affects people's livelihoods. It still
yeah,
affects people. And when we don't allow for that interaction when we're merging,
yeah,
our doctors own these businesses. They've done well. Some of them are doing it for lots of reasons. I mean,
yeah,
I've heard every reason in the book. One, I want to retire.
yeah.
Two, I just don't.
I'm tired of
This is
the
legit. Now,
Michigan.
this is legit. I've had doctors tell me I don't want to even hear about the stuff that
Yeah,
happens in the front office. I don't care about the finances anymore. I just want to get my paycheck and I want to go
and go
home and
home.
spend time with my
Yep,
family. I
yep.
don't want to be a part of the operational running of this clinic. That's why I sold it. Right. And
Yep.
then you have other doctors that are like, they sell it and they like, I want to know everything about the operational and I want to make every decision. And I'm like, did
Yep.
you sell the practice? Did you not sell? I just kind of, and you're like, what's happened? I don't really understand. And
That's
then,
right.
but when you don't include the whole team in this process,
You
it doesn't matter how well you go to the table and have dinner and beer with them.
Yep.
Okay, why don't you do this? Have dinner and beer with the whole practice.
Yeah.
Have
Yeah.
dinner, have a cookout. Get to know Susie, get to know Jenny, get to know
Yep.
Kyle, get to know them. And then say, is this the practice that's going to fit into my practice or
That's
my
right.
MSO or my DSO? Do they have the same value? Does the
That's
practice
exactly it.
itself have the same
Have the same
values or is it
values.
just the doctor? And
Yep.
I know that, again, it's business and it's all about EBITDA and it's all about that risk and people don't want to spend time doing that. But I could totally be wrong with this, but I do think right now, today in 2025, everybody's kind of wishing they had done that before in
Yes.
2020, in 2021,
Everybody is wishing
21,
they had
22.
done that.
They had said we should have done this a little differently, just a little bit.
Yeah. And that's why I'm excited to sort of be part of the evolution of the dentistry, in that this is going to be now the standard. That part of what you're doing when you're doing your due diligence about whether or not you're going to partner or acquire is that the people due diligence becomes much more important because you can't fail now. The money is too tight. You can't really be affording to lose like half the team because you didn't treat them well, because then the asset you just acquired isn't worth as much as it would have been. So now
And
it's
part of
not a
the
nice
asset
to
is
do.
the people.
Yeah, and I don't think people recognize that. It's like, the people are what you're actually acquiring, right? They
Yeah,
make
their
the business
skills, their
run.
ability to keep the schedule open, their
Yep,
ability to collect money, their ability to keep patient satisfaction, their ability to
yep.
grow the practice. You don't have people,
You don't
nothing
really have a
happens.
business. You don't have a business.
If you don't have a dentist that's really, really good, nothing happens. You
Yeah.
don't have a staff, from my perspective, of course I do RevCycle. And I'm all about the money, right? Of course, I always bring that up into my podcast because, that's important to do that. But if you don't have people that understand how to make money or bring in money, when you go to buy that practice,
Or
you're
understand how
blind.
their role impacts the money, right? So I'm always talking about the fact that people don't understand that somebody else's role impacts money a certain way. And when you don't do something, they can't do the thing they're supposed to do.
It's
And
all
that
a
impacts
trickle
the
effect.
money. Yeah.
It's all a trickle effect, and it affects the cash flow, affects the net collections, which affects the EBITDA.
Yep.
But there's a lot of
Yep.
people that will say, "Oh, rev cycle doesn't affect EBITDA," and I was like, "Oh man, you don't understand cash, do you?"
No.
It's not always about, revenue cycle is a cost department. We all know that, but it's not, that's not the cost that's causing your company to go down the road. What's
Yep.
causing you is not having the cash, right? If you're
Yep.
struggling, it's because of the cash, which means you need the rev cycle team to help all these trickle down effects, right?
That's
But at the end of the
exactly it.
day, when you're acquisitioning and you're having these merger conversations with with these two groups, right? It's going to be interesting, I think, in the next 3 years, how people
Oh,
use
yeah.
the psychology of
Yeah.
acquisitions and stuff,
Yeah.
because there are like hospital systems, for example.
So many DSOs and DPOs say, and you've seen this too, we're all about autonomy and we want you to be the same. Nothing is going to change. And when I mean those words, I'm like in for
Yeah,
trouble.
they're describing a DPO, a partner organization.
Partnership. Yeah.
They're not describing operating and they're not describing flip,
Yeah.
but yet those two are the things that are happening.
Yep.
So
Yep.
they're describing a DPO, and that's what
But they're not
lures.
actually
But at
happening.
the end of the day, that is not what they are. They
No.
are full operating or they are a flip, right? And then that's when conflict happens.
I
You know,
agree. That's why the doctor really has to sort of understand the basics of all the different deals. So many deals, there's so many ways to slice it, dice it to make it attractive, but you have to then be able to ask the hard questions. So one of the things that we're adding to Tacola now is, right now the scenarios are based on interactions between the team members on the staff, but we're adding new conversations around dealing with vendors and
oh wow,
maybe
yeah,
the leadership of your DPO, because those are hard conversations too that you
yeah.
have to be able to have. You have to be able to ask the right questions like, okay, you tell me I'm going to have autonomy. That's great to hear. What does that really look like? And can you parse that out for me? Here's a scenario that I expect might happen. How does that work with your idea of autonomy? And most don't want to ask those kind of questions because it's looking like he might not say yes. But you have to
Yeah,
ask
it's
those
a
questions to
risk
make
to the
sure
deal. It's
that's
a
right,
risk to the
to
deal.
the deal. But you have to ask them, otherwise you're joining a deal and it's going to be risky. So,
I will say this, there's so much involved in writing out a deal. These deals don't just happen overnight.
no,
It doesn't happen in 2 months. It
no.
typically takes 6 to 8 months to get a
Yeah,
deal,
it's a long
land.
time.
And depending on how large the practice is, it could take a year to get a deal, right?
Yeah.
But I think that there's a lot of education that still
Hmm.
needs to be done around deals. So I look at it like this. So in medical, we went through this in the early 2000s. From 2000 to 2010, doctors were merging into groups or merging into hospital systems. Now we're seeing it now in dental. And we're seeing the dental come into these DSOs and MSOs. And people are going to hate me when I say this, but in the next 5 years or 10, it's going to be less than 10 years, I know. The hospital systems are going to jump in and start buying these. Dental has gotten so mainstream into part of healthcare. You're starting to see what Pacific Dental is starting to bring in medical professionals
that's
into
exactly who I was thinking
their thing.
about.
So you're starting to see these people kind of saying, "Oh, let's integrate these PAs and NPs and pediatrics and
Yeah.
general
That's when
dentistry."
you're really going to have some conversations, right? Because then those roles really do not understand each other
No,
and
they
will not
don't. Well,
necessarily
they
see
don't.
value in the others.
They do different things,
Uh,
right? But let's be frank. I've been in both worlds. So I know from a front office perspective and operational perspective, they do the same things. They still
yeah,
do finance, they still see patients, they still do treatment plans, they
but they
still
don't
check
think it's the
patients in,
same
they
thing.
still do that. It's the medical side, the clinical side that's vastly different,
Yeah.
not the operational
Relation
side that's
side.
vastly different. And so that's where people get, confused and
Yeah.
dealing.
And you have to be willing to ask questions and ask the hard questions and ask different hard questions. I think probably the skill that we all could use so much more training on is question formation. The better questions you
Oh my
ask, the
gosh,
better
I could use
outcomes you
that.
get.
You could teach me more of that too. I'd appreciate that.
Because that's really, I think two things are so clear to me. When you're really good at forming excellent questions and you're a great listener, you own the world. You own the world, right? Because you are
I'm
able
gonna
to
need to just sit down and pay you some money so you can help me form out my questions.
deal, deal.
I mean, we all need our skills and our stuff, but you're right. I mean, I think you're right. I think some deals are easy because
Yeah.
people click and they do really well and it's great. And some deals are
What?
harder because it's just getting everybody aligned on the same thought process and stuff.
That's right.
All right, let me
Misalignment.
ask a few more other questions because we
Okay.
keep coming back to this amazing topic. We could spend 15 years on this topic and it would be so much fun for me
Well,
because I'm
I've
learning.
spent 30 years on this topic, so you know I
I'm
love to talk
learning.
about it.
Well, I know you have, but I've only spent an hour on this topic. I can't tell you how much I've learned already. And even just
Good.
thinking about my past and even today, what could I change today for Sissy to do better? Because it's
Yep.
all about growing ourselves. It's
It
all about
is.
growth of ourselves. Yes, we've made mistakes. I struggle on worrying about what I did in the past and how it's affecting my future, blah, 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 blah. And trying to constantly improve and get better, and hopefully that's the case. But the thing was you can't do anything about what you did in the past, so stop worrying
Nope.
about it. You
Yeah.
can't do it.
It's
What
just a
you want to
drag.
do is learn about what you can do for the future. And it's kind of like what you're doing, what Coca-Cola does is it says, okay, forget about what happened yesterday. Let's not
What's
even
going to
worry about,
happen?
let's just learn to do it a little bit better going forward.
That's
And
right.
conflict resolution and having that conflict mindset, like what you were saying earlier, we just literally went through multiple ways that you can use this conflict mindset. We went through practice, we
Yeah.
went through personal, we
Yeah.
went through doctor, we went through acquisitions, we went
Yeah.
through mergers, we went
Yeah.
through conflict just regular. I mean, see how great this tool that you're doing. And here's what I also thought is really cool. Because it's an AI tool, they can just do it anytime they want. But at the end of the day, you don't have to
Go it alone.
do it alone. It is there. It is like right there in front of you and talking with it. So, okay. All right. So let's do it with that. What's the funniest thing that's ever happened to you in your career?
Funniest thing I think probably that ever happened to me was when I was leaving Bank of America, they threw me a going away party. And what people don't know about ombuds is that it's a really private profession. So I have to be a clean slate for anybody who comes to me. In the days when I had an office, there was no pictures of my family, no indicators of the sports teams that I wanted, none of that stuff. Just you would come and blank. You could put whatever you wanted on me. So when I had my going away party, my children came. And so people were like, who are these children? Who do these
Who are
children
these
belong
people?
to? And they're like, those are Dina's kids. And I was like, what? She married? She has children? So it looks like I did a really good job of masking my personal life
Oh
because
my
people
gosh,
were like,
that's
who?
great. Oh, so we now know you could definitely work for the CIA or the FBI. We wouldn't even know
Yeah,
it.
I'm big on privacy. I promise my clients privacy. So even my client list is private. You probably noticed on LinkedIn that I don't share a lot of stories because, again, private. So if I don't have
You
permission,
got
I
to
don't
be
share the
well, it's the
story.
type it's the work that you do, and
Yeah.
it's okay. I'm on LinkedIn all the time. Well, that's because I do rev cycle and I want people to enjoy and learn, right?
Yeah.
But that's not what you do, but you do talk about the tacolas, which is really, really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so what do you see is happening in the future? What do you think is going to happen from an innovation standpoint? Especially, I mean, you're already a
Here's what I'd love to see happen. Let's say it that way, is that I would love to see dentistry as a whole really focus on and embrace the people side so that it becomes normalized that everybody has a conflict resolution policy. It's the same thing that we have on the clinical side. We have policies, procedures we follow. On the people side, we have a conflict management policy that governs how we're interacting with each other. I would love to see more practices investing in skilling their people around having conflict conversations because that front desk has got to get the person to pay for their, services. Maybe you need to have somebody who feels comfortable with conversations that are around money for case acceptance. All those kinds of conversations rely on that person being confident in their abilities, but also empathetic and curious about what the patient needs, right? No one wants to be in pain because their teeth hurts, but they also don't want to overspend. They don't really understand how the economics works. And so
yeah.
if you can answer those questions, then you get to do the treatment plan. But if you're like, I'm afraid I don't want them to not like me, it doesn't really work. So I really want the profession to focus on skilling up everybody so that a high level of competence around being conflict ready. I
I love
personally
that. I
see,
really would love to see, from an RCM perspective, I would really love to see um, our teams in all industries, but in dentistry because it is such high,
yeah,
there is such high patient responsibility from a
yep,
dental perspective. And I know people don't like to talk about that, but in medical, it's getting more into patient responsibility because of the high deductibles and the high,
yep, yep,
things there. But it's still manageable for people to mostly have if they do their HSAs, they have the the money for their medical, right? But in dentistry, the
yeah,
insurance or the discount plans or the whatever, however you would like to call them, they're only going to pay so much, and then
yeah,
it's all the patient's responsibility. And
yep,
I would love to see more of this understanding of, because regardless of whether it's positive or negative conflict, you've got to be able to talk to people and help them understand the compassion around this. Because our doctors and
yep,
dentists, they they want to they want to take care of you. They want to
yes,
take
they
care of
do.
your health.
Yep,
They are not thinking about the bottom line with you. They're just
yep,
not. However, when you leave, they're going, did we get paid?
yeah,
I got to keep the
yeah,
lights on.
that's
Right?
exactly,
And
yeah,
so I got to keep the staff paid. I've got to keep the equipment and the EMR going because I have to pay these things, right?
yeah.
The so understanding how to talk to to
Human
people
beings
about
about
money
money, such a
is
tough thing.
so hard.
And
And there are some people that are supernatural at it. I've worked with some amazing people that they could walk in and people will just say, "Okay, here's all the money I have."
well, it's because
Because
of
of the
their
way they can
approach,
talk to
right?
them.
They
It's
approach it
their
in the right
approach
way.
and
What
their
I'm
way
I'm
to deal with the conflict.
I'm encouraging people to approach it as a problem that you're both sharing. So if you and I are sitting at a table, Sissy, and you're on one side of the table and I'm on the other side, and that mountain of money that is going to be the treatment plan is the problem between us, I want us to sit on the same side of the table. I'm going to come to your side of the table and we're going to look at that mountain and figure out, okay, what is our goal? How can we collectively figure out how to get this mountain paid off? Now it's like, I need to get your money. How can I convince you to do it? It's like you have some health
Yeah.
goals.
How do I convince you to get that case acceptance? And
Yeah, I want
that's
you have some health goals. I want to help you. How can we work together to make this happen?
I look at case acceptance is extremely important, but case acceptance is not the goal.
Yeah, the health is the
Patient
goal.
actually
Yeah,
receiving the service is the
it's
goal.
the goal.
And I can accept a case, but never do the service. I can say, I'll do it, and then be like, I'll do it next month. I'll do it the
And
following
next
month.
one.
I'll do it the next month. The goal is to say, does the patient need the service? And is the need so much that the patient sees that that's a value to them
Yep.
and that they are willing to give up what they need to give up from that? So
To get it.
we talk about opportunity cost. What's
Yep.
the opportunity cost of that $800? Is
That's
the
right.
opportunity cost so that I have no more pain is higher than the opportunity to pay my electric bill.
That's right. Do I want to have a
Hopefully
nice
it's higher
smile?
than the electric bill because
Yeah.
you got the pain, right? But you have to have a way to talk to him to say you have to have that why, that ability
Yeah.
to go against that conflict, because that's what the conflict is.
Yep.
Am I going to have the money to pay my bill? Is it going to have the money to pay my
Yep.
house note? Is it going to this is real dollars in dentistry.
Yes. And
It's very
actually,
rare that it's less than 400. A general dentist and pediatric dentist, I'm going to be talking to the public about all these things, and then everybody's going to be mad at me. But that's okay. It's okay, because when people have expectations and understand, then they make good
better
decisions.
decisions.
An average pediatric or general dentist claim, average claim, is about $400. The insurance company on a pediatric and dentist will pay, either the 80% or 100% or 50%. So the patient's responsibility is somewhere between 50 to 170, somewhere between that. So when they come in to a doctor, if their expectation for a regular visit, cleaning, maybe get a cavity, maybe get something, blah, blah, probably going to be around $175 is they
Yep.
should be coming in with that kind of money. But when you walk into, I'm getting cavities, I'm getting a crown, I'm getting a root canal, I'm getting an implant, I'm getting an extraction. Extraction is the least of them all. Those average claim is like $1,200.
Boom.
And the insurance company may pay a quarter, 25% of that.
Yep.
Some pay more, some pay nothing at all, because it's,
Yep.
whatever. The average claim. So now the patient's not coming in with 175. They're coming in with 1,100.
Yeah. But their expectation might still be 175. And then you're
100.
saying it's
That's right. Their expectation is going to be
1100.
175 because
And
my
then
insurance
there's
is
the
paid for it.
glass.
And the reason why they think that is because when they go to a medical practice, they're not forking out that much money.
Yeah.
On the front end. Even with the higher deductible plan, they're not doing as much money. Okay.
Yeah.
And so they can't reconcile the difference, if
Yep.
that makes sense. And
It
so
makes
now you
perfect
truly
sense.
are talking to a person on whether or not they're going to pay their house note, whether or not they're going to pay their car note, whether or not they're going to put the money into savings.
Yeah.
I think Americans, they say the average American has $1,000
We're
in
not
savings.
savers at the
And
moment.
that the average American is 2 paychecks from
Away from disaster.
disaster. So
Yeah.
when you're talking about dentistry, and it's so important, I mean, I can't stress the importance of the health of dentistry. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is not about health. This is not about the clinical side. I'm talking about the business side. If we don't understand how to have these conflict conversations around money with patients, all the patient does is regret the doctor. All the patient does is regret the billing aspect. Have you not heard that? Well, the billing was horrible. The conflict conversation was not resolved at the beginning to help them understand that. I personally, if I say this to anybody and all DSOs that are listening and all MSOs that are listening, every leader in the organization, if you can just spend whatever the cost is, I don't know what it is. Hopefully it's very affordable. I'll let you deal with that, Dina. But at the end of the day, get this AI technology about how to talk conflict and do it with the fact of money. I can tell you're going to have more patients coming in satisfied. They're going to tell everybody about it. It doesn't matter about what your costs are. You could be the bougie practice. It's okay for you to be the bougie practice. It's okay for you to be the fee-for-service practice. It's okay for you to be the Medicaid practice. It's okay because you're servicing different kinds of people and different kinds of tastes. But when you walk in the door, your patient should never, ever in a dental practice, period, be surprised about their bill before they had their service done.
No.
Or after they had their service done. There's no reason. Now, I can see that in medical because of, the doctors don't know what's wrong with you when you walk in, your chest might be hurting. But you
Yeah.
know what? Your chest
It
might be
might be
hurting
something
because you
else.
were doing a whole lot of push-ups
Yeah.
and you messed with your muscles and got costochondritis, and there's nothing wrong with you. It's just your muscles, right? Or it could be a major heart attack and open heart surgery. Two
Yeah.
different things when it
Yeah.
comes
Yeah.
from that stuff. So I want everyone, and I don't do this on my podcast because you've heard this before. I've
Yeah.
never said I want everyone to do this. I want everyone to be calling Dina. I want every one of you guys to reach out to her webpage. I want every one of you guys to look at her AI technology for these conflict conversations so that this is just not just for your teams in RevCycle, but your teams for your whole team for
Yeah.
I'm getting
Yeah.
ready to sell my practice. How should I do this? How should I
Yeah.
conversation this? It's such a tool that I see that could so benefit everybody. I have Cissy on my team and she's such a direct person and I need to know how to communicate with her. Well, let me get with, Taco. I'm sorry, I said that wrong.
Nicola.
Cola, and say, how do I interact with Cissy? And then they say these are the best ways to interact with Cissy.
Yep. Well, I love
Why?
that you said that. Thank you. I will say that we are gonna go to beta in September. So everyone is invited to join the beta if you go to tacola.com. And I actually designed it specifically for healthcare. I know how busy people are. So sessions are 15 minutes on your phone. So wherever you're at, you can be like, I have to have this conversation with this person. I need a little practice. Boop,
I need a little
15 minutes
practice.
later,
And you know
you're
what?
ready.
I probably will. I will say this too. From a new entrepreneur as I am, partnering with a couple of other partners, which are amazing, by the way. One of the things that I'm struggling with is having those great conversations on the sales side and understand
Yeah,
how do I say the right questions, or these are the individual these are things that people we're good at what we do.
yeah.
You are an amazing mediator. I mean, just us talking, I can see that you're amazing mediator.
I'm pretty good.
Good with talking with people, and you have these skill sets. I'm great with rev cycle and operations and talking with doctors and helping people to understand how the money comes in, right? But then there are other skill sets that we just need to know and that we're not
Yeah,
good at. And these are the
this
kinds
is
of
one
skill
of them.
sets. These skill sets of talking with people are sometimes come naturally, like to my husband. But to me, I have to really think about it. It's like, okay, I'm talking to Susie. How do I do this without making her upset?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
all right. So,
And it's very affordable. I'll just say that for the minimum seats that you can get are 2, and it's 1176 for the year. So it's very affordable. 5 seats are like I think just under $3,000, like 2,900. So it's really affordable. It's worth doing. I'm
it's
recommending
affordable
that
for the
people,
whole team, and they're using it. They're
yeah,
using it, and it's
practicing
one of those
twice a
things that
week.
if you're buying a practice, that's not a lot of money to make sure that you have the ability to talk back and forth between
Yeah.
your groups and stuff.
You're paying for retention assurance, and that's a little bit of money to pay to make sure that your team is going to stay intact.
Let's do my famous rapid fire. This is what I ask
Okay.
everybody. If you weren't in healthcare or
Mhm.
dentistry, any kind of healthcare, what would you be doing?
This is a great question because I know exactly what I'd be doing. I would be a food vlogger. I'm a big, big foodie. I love to cook, Pan Asian, every cuisine I eat. And so I would be just traveling the country, going to food festivals like the Food and Wine Classic or the Family Reunion and, you know, vlogging about that experience so people could see.
Okay, that's it. I'm gonna have to pull all the people who have been on my podcast that love food. I'm gonna have to have. I'm gonna make it big one day where money is not an option. I'm gonna just fly all you guys in and have you work it and have you be in the kitchen and just like have so much fun. It would just
Yeah.
be so much fun. You would fit right in there. Okay, what's a weird or unexpected skill that you have acquired over your career?
Oh, weird or unexpected guilt. This is kind of weird, and I usually don't mention this, but it's you, so I will. I sort of have the ability to see people as they were. So sometimes when I'm talking to someone, I can see their younger self, and it just fills in questions sometimes that I don't have to ask. And it's kind of a weird thing, which is why I don't mention it, but
You're
I
like
can,
intuitive. You're like able to see
yes,
the
I
intuitiveness.
don't see you when you were younger. So that's kind of
Okay, we'll
weird.
talk about that offline. I'll give you a few
Okay.
dollars, a few pennies, for the lecture, for the therapy there. Okay, what is your go-to way to de-stress?
Well, it's kind of conventional. I nap. Like,
Oh, I
I
love
had to
that.
have a nap every day because it just is a great way to reset. If I'm in a bad mood or I'm highly stressed, I just lie down for 30 minutes. I wake up, the world has changed.
Done that. I've lied down in my office before and fallen asleep for 15, 20 minutes, and people are like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I'm fine.
Yeah, just need a break from you.
Just need a break. Take a second." If you could have dinner with any historical or modern figure in healthcare and dentistry, what would it be, or who would it be, and why?
Historical figure. Huh, I think you stumped me. Now, if you asked me just in general, I would be having dinner with Maya Angelou, who I consider to be my spiritual
Okay,
mother.
that's great.
But I have to think about who in healthcare.
It doesn't have, she was pretty good in all fields of stuff. So
Yeah, I just love her philosophy on life and how down to earth she is. So yeah, I would definitely be having dinner with her. Now you really got me thinking about the healthcare, but maybe Madame Curie, I don't know.
Madame Curie would be very interesting for sure.
Yeah.
Now people are going to be like, "Sissy, get back into your chemistry books," and I'll be like, "I know, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm
Well,
totally messed
all
it
right, I'll
up."
give you a better one. Burke Harris. She's not someone I'd like to sit down with. She wrote the book on trauma and how it impacts communities in terms of their health. So it would be great to
Oh
have a
wow!
conversation with her because I read her, but what she writes about is that the experiences that you have as a younger child, if they're traumatic, if they're difficult, makes you more vulnerable to having chronic diseases later in life.
Wow!
And so I'd love to be able to sit down and talk with her about the correlation between the kinds of trauma that you experience at work and how that impacts your health.
You know what? I'll tag her on the show and see if she'll want
Oh,
to have
wouldn't that be
dinner with
great?
you. That would be great. Let's just put it out there in the universe that you're going to get to have
Yeah, we're
dinner
going to
with
have
her.
dinner. I'd love to have dinner with her.
That's awesome. Well, Dina, thank you again for being on the show. It was an absolute pleasure.
It was really my joy. I was delighted when you asked me to join you because I knew we were going to have a good conversation, and we did. It was very rich. I think people are going to start thinking about how they communicate. And can I just tell you a little secret?
Yeah, tell me a secret.
It's my secondary reason. So I love doing the work, and I developed Tacola because I wanted people to feel empowered at work to have the hard conversations. But secretly, I'm hoping to impact their home life so they have better conversations with their spouses and their children. Because that's really where life happens, right? At home.
Yep. If you're happy at, I know this sounds crazy, but if you're happy at home, if you're not having as much stress, everybody has stress at home, but if you're not having as much stress, it can bleed into having a better work life as well.
Yes. So that's what I'm secretly trying to do. Just I want everyone to have the best home
The
life, best
secret's
communication.
superpower.
That's right. I want everyone to have the superpower because honestly, it changes your life. You can give up worrying about things, about hurting somebody's feelings 'cause you know that you can navigate those conversations.
I can't tell you how much I've enjoyed this conversation,
Me
and I
too.
hope that everybody will have enjoyed the conversation too. So it's going to be great. Well, thank you, Nina. Have a wonderful rest of the day. And
You too,
again,
Sissy.
what a pleasure. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you. Talk to you soon. Bye, gal.
Okay, bye.
Well, that's a wrap for this episode of The Hidden Pulse with Sissy and my guest, Dana Lynch Eisenberg. What an incredible conversation. I truly enjoyed hearing Dana's perspective on navigating difficult conversations, learning more about her, and understanding how important it is to make difficult decisions and approaching life's biggest transitions with clarity and purpose. So whether you're leading an organization, managing a team, or even facing some of those personal crossroads, today's discussion is a reminder that the decisions we make today shape our opportunities for tomorrow. Sometimes the hardest conversations are the ones that lead us to the greatest growth. I hope today's conversation left you feeling inspired, equipped, and empowered to approach your next challenge with confidence. If this episode resonated with you, please don't keep it to yourself. Share it with your colleagues or your friends or someone who may need to listen, who may be facing a very difficult decision or navigating a season of change. If you enjoyed the show, please don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share with your network. We're growing, and with your help, we'll continue to bring meaningful conversations to leaders and professionals across the healthcare and beyond. Because every pulse and every story and every connection matters. I'm Cissy Mangrum. Until next time, keep pushing forward, embrace the conversations that matter, stay curious, and never lose sight of your hidden pulse.